Hello, and today I look insane. This is sponsored by sleeping with my hair up with Gatsby product in it and not showering yet. Thank you. Now a word from our sponsors, the person who is insane. Have you ever flawlessly flaunted your attractiveness only to realize that you are now going to have to engage in combat because you've riled up some people who don't have any self-discipline? Well, if you have done that, you're just like me. And I don't have a solution for you. It's really horrible. I actually need help. So this is a help video because the only thing I can think of is to build a small personal army of offspring and retaliate. So really what this video is about well, I actually forgot. I was going to say something and I forgot. It's something about the tattooing thing, right? I was going to explain one of my tattoos. Now I remember. Haha! So, this onk is actually the first tattoo that I ever technically had and did myself. And it didn't look like that when I first did it. Let me tell you the story. This is how I got involved in tattooing. So, I was in a psych ward. This is how all great stories start. And, I think I was in, no, I was going to say, I think I might have been in Virginia Hospital, but I don't actually know where I was. I've been hospitalized psychiatrically over 10 times, and I haven't been psychiatrically hospitalized in a while now, but, I used to go kind of frequently, and, I didn't have any tattoos back then. But one of the main things that would happen is, like, my mental disability, it's very interesting. I don't have autism in the sense of, like, a diagnosed spectrum disorder necessarily. But disorders are on a spectrum, and I have multiple diagnoses, and in my opinion, it kind of, when I'm in the throes of a psychotic episode, it reminds me of how I've seen some relatively severely disabled autistic people, how they throw tantrums and stuff like that. I don't know what else to call it. I don't know if the tantrum's the right word, but that's what it feels like when it happens to me. It's just a fucking crazy ass tantrum, and it's justified, but people don't know how to help. So anyway, but I used to self-harm, which I don't recommend. Sometimes I do it by accident still, just because I don't intend to, but I have triggers and habits that are very powerful, and most of my self-harm has just, mostly been just reduced to zero. As physical self-harm, I still mentally and emotionally self-harm all the time, but it's harder to catch me on that. Well, it's not harder to catch me on it, it's harder to get me to stop it because, like, it was encouraged. I'm just repeating things people have said to me or done to me, or extrapolating their mindset because I have nothing else to do. Unfortunately, sometimes it's all I think about. But the tattooing, this brings us back to tattooing. You see my arm is full, or relatively full. It's not all the way full. I'm saving this part so that whoever does my back, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, can get some of my arms too. Otherwise, I could just try to, I could try to cover them. It's not impossible to reach. Or I could have... Anyway, long story short, though, the first tattoo I ever did was that onk. But it wasn't like that. I was in the psych ward, and I had a ballpoint pen. And you might think to yourself, well, why don't you just try writing? Like, writing is a healthy way of coping. Yeah, that's how I ended up there. It was by writing. Thanks for the suggestion. But I had to try something else. And when I say I got there by writing, I mean, as an avid musician and an avid linguist, I drove myself insane by being hyper prolific without properly establishing support systems. Does that make sense? I know that seems weird, but it turns out that if you're if you get too far ahead of yourself with being successful without establishing a societal feedback loop, then the system misses you, and you just go off and you accomplish all these things, and you turn around and everyone stabs you in the back because they didn't realize what you were doing. Anyway, long story short, I was in the psych ward. I had a ballpoint pen or whatever the fuck it was, and I figured out how to, what was it, paperclip? I took a paperclip and I sharpened it on the ground, and then I dipped in the ballpoint pen, and I never tattooed before. I never even watched a tutorial video. But I was having, sometimes when I have psychotic episodes, I experience direct contact with God. I think it's because my psychotic episode is the result of my circumcision, usually. I'm not saying you can't have psychotic episodes without, like, issues, or I think it's an issue. Without issues like that, I'm learning how to cope, using other skills and accepting things. And then this is why I bring up tattooing so importantly, because I think that if you want to try to take that same concept, because medically it's not really necessary anymore in like this day and age, but if you want to exhibit the spiritual idea of sacrifice and marking yourself for a tribe, I would recommend tattooing. I would recommend getting some tattoos. If you can cut a baby's foreskin off on its first day of being alive, you can tattoo a baby. So I'm just saying, maybe try something else. And fuck you, by the way. But anyway, the ankh was in my head. I was having a connection with my higher power, and although I was experiencing extreme dis-ease and illness, God spoke to me directly, and I've been trying to make sense of it. So I took the pen and I basically stitched the ink into my ankle in an ankh shape. At the time, it was just line like that. But I did the whole thing before I got caught, because they check on you every now and then, and it's pretty hard not to. It's pretty hard not to get caught with shit like that, even if it's not, or at least at the time, even if it's not like super obvious. They were very perceptive at times. But I finished the tattoo before they caught me, and of course it didn't stick. It fell out. But years later, I actually learned how to tattoo for real, kind of. I say kind of because you know how the industry is. People will shit on you all day and tell you you're doing everything wrong, just to replace your habits with theirs and get a paycheck off you. I'm not saying there aren't genuine people who will teach you something. I've learned some really cool things from other tattoo artists, but I'm pretty disgusted with how I got treated when I tried to enter as a apprentice for someone else. That didn't go well. I didn't do anything wrong either, but it just didn't go well. But when I did the ankh, I'm not saying like, oh, the designers just divinely handed to me. That's kind of delusional. But when I explain this context, you might actually understand what happened. I from your own perspective, I can't claim to understand what happened entirely, but basically, it was pretty simple. It felt like meaning. If I had to describe how it felt like meaning was circling me, and there was some sort of meaning circling me. And then one of the things that I always noticed about myself as a musician and a creator is that I always seem to have to work harder to pull out the creativity from somewhere deeper than it seems like other people have to. Like watching Juice WRLD freestyle, I'm like, dude, like I have to like sit at the time I was like, I have to pretty much always sit down and like write a symphony in order to get my words out. And of course, we see how the trajectory occurred. I'm not perfect, but I'm still alive. So perhaps there's something to being a little bit more long-term with what you put out there, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, my point was that my words, although I could tap into like a mental algorithm that I already had running, and I could kind of like push creativity and lyrics and stuff out of my soul, like with effort. In this moment where I was in the psych ward and I had tattooed my ankle or was in the process of it, I heard like a limerick or something get like sent to me in my head. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but if I can come up with it real quick, it was like a prophecy. And it's like, you know how I think everyone has like perceived prophecies sent to them throughout their life, and some of them turned out to be bullshit. It was just a weak signal that hit your brain, and you didn't, and you held on to it or whatever, if you did. But some of it is like way more powerful and crops up throughout your life, and you should pay attention to it, I feel like. So the not a limerick, but like the rhyming statement that entered in my head was something to the effect of, something something in her time of need, and you will be here, and you will be there for her seed. Something about that. It was like blah 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 and blah blah in her time of need, and you will be there for her seed. And then I had a visual. You know how like in culture, like the DMT experience has become more popular to talk about a little bit. But I've been having experiences like that my whole life. Actually, when I smoked the DMT for the first time, it was basically just like, a waking or like a lucid dream. That's all. I could just watch my dream happening faster. Well, at the time it was faster. But the movie, the Fantasia movie, I guess, from Disney. That's what I grew up on, stuff like that. So like the drug world isn't necessarily separate from my own world, by the way, just saying. Just wanted to clarify that, so that like when I talk about like hallucinations and like receiving messages from my higher power, don't like this is normal. That's humans behave like that. Humans have these experiences. That's what makes us humans. That's why we're here. So, but I am wondering, by the way, and this is just an open-ended idea that I'm putting out there. I've spent a lot of time in my life looking for a wife and not finding one, by the way, in person. I've been a trigger warning for those of you out there who feel very strongly about the negative nature of males and fail to see how females can contribute. I've been in some situations where I was on the receiving end of some behavior that was not perpetuating towards the other person. Let's put it that way. Okay, I'll just leave it there. I won't go into the rest of it. Anyway, but when I think about the people that I've been like, there's a few different ways of looking at it, right? Interested in. That can mean a lot of different things. To me, what a good wife would be is, first of all, I have to actually like them as a person. That's what I missed previously. Not that I didn't try. You have to understand, it's just that I've had some experiences that enlightened me to the fact that I wasn't behaving like myself necessarily. Because of some things that I believed or was under the impression of, or I was playing along with, things have changed. I'm still doing that to some degree. Don't get me wrong, I need help, but I've made some progress on that particular area. Anyway, so when I think about stuff, I think of like, I have to like them as a person, and then they have to have similar interests to me and be good at things that I think are cool, basically. That's, and they have to be attractive to me, but that's subjective because I can be attracted to many different types of people. It's what's in here that counts. And my whole point is that what's in here comes out here if you let it, if you find it, or whatever, wherever it shows up, if you let it. But so what I'm saying is that there's only so many girls in this world who fit into that category that I've known about so far. I mean, I've been exposed to a lot of different people, a lot of different ways that we all have now. So, I mean, I consider that experience with the Ankh tattoo like an actual spiritual experience, not just like me being crazy in the psych ward. I consider it to actually have been contact with my higher power. And as I'm still alive, I've been really pessimistic about a lot of things because of how difficult things have been for me. But the fact of the matter is that I'm still alive and I still remember that experience. So I'm wondering if there isn't some little, what's it called? A little comedy humor for you. I wonder if there ain't some sort of meat code out there for me individually. I don't know though. Oh yeah, just so that you're not like overly concerned, or maybe you will be overly. Anyway, just for informative value, I've already kind of gotten to what I was getting at in a sense. I've been on a million fucking psychiatric medications, and now I'm working on getting my medication routine to the point where I don't hate it. Okay, because most of the medications I've taken, I've absolutely hated, and the ways that I've been treated, I've absolutely hated. So we're working on that. I got better therapists now, and my medication routine. I'm actually establishing a new medication routine right now. I've been known to have narcoleptic episodes, unfortunately, due to probably everything. And so today I took Sunosi, which helps with daytime wakefulness. And I also have migraines every single day because I have not just TBIs, but tons of other problems. And so I now am prescribed Ergomar instead of rizatriptan. Well, not instead of rizatriptan. I still have some rizatriptan. And what was the other one? Sunosi, yeah, instead of modafinil. Or I still have the modafinil, but it's a bit more difficult to process in my body. And this is after I was taking Trintellix also. Fortunately, I don't have to take that anymore because I have ketamine prescribed. And the promethazine that I have is still available to me, but the marijuana seems to take the place of some of that. It's not the only thing it does. Thank God it also helps with pain and stuff like that. But, once again, we have to, treat things as they come up, diversify, stuff like that. This helps me to explain it not just for context as to my psychiatric visits, but because I just insinuated that there's someone out there that someone out there who I would like to take, there's someone out there whomst them I would like to me take seriously. What the fuck? ¿Qué tú quieres? ¿Qué? Anyway, so, yeah, I just felt like explaining the Ankh tattoo, I guess, and I added a little extra detail there. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm overlaying my own perceptions in a somewhat cryptic way over what I think it may mean, but I'm also aware that right on the liminal space of love lies the CIA. I was actually going to say, like, that I might be coming off as, like, super creepy. That's what I was saying, spooky or whatever. But I'm just happy to share the story about the ankle tattoo. And if the weird prophecy type thing I received turns out to be about who I'm starting to think it was about, and that's cool. If it was not, then that's also cool. And if I don't ever reproduce, I guess that's also cool because it's God's plan or whatever. But and frankly, after all the psychiatric visits I've been to, you'd be right to question whether or not I can reproduce. I have some other questions about what has happened to me during my lifetime, but I've been encouraged not to catastrophize. So instead, I'm just going to leave it there, and I'll show you the ankle again. I did this with, I think I did it with one of the rotary machines that Ryan Beep Boop Bep has lent me in the pasticles. And he worked on this one. I have this one too. He did that. He presses really hard, so just be careful. And I should probably go see Rob Fall and get this one colored in at some point. He did a great job on this one. Reminds me of one of the stickers that I use in DMZ. Anyway, we got a little bit of bonus tattoo time, so I guess I'll see you later.